give maybe 2 or 3 more minutes so that we're respectful of everybody's time, but can kick off things on the road.
Is my microphone working?
It sure is, Representative.
Cool, thank you. I hate to be mute.
Well, now you just have to hope you unmute yourself when it's your turn.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Good morning, Senator Roberts, Speaker McCluskey, Senator Will, Representative Catlin, looking for others. Great to see you all. Oh, there's Rep. Soper. How's Germany?
It's great, although I'm in Belgium this time.
Oh, Belgium, sorry.
It's okay.
I saw your email about carriage crashes.
Yeah, we're driving in the countryside of Holland. This was about a few days ago, and we're only going about 20 miles an hour. But out from a farmhouse came a horse and smashed through the windshield. I was driving, and luckily I was driving because the horse's head did come through. It smashed up the entire driver's side. Had Sarah been driving, she's a lot shorter than I am, so she probably would have been closer. But luckily, aside from some minor cuts, we're okay. The horse ended up having a couple of surgeries and is in horse ICU. But the owner witnessed the whole thing. It was a professional racing horse that he was, or a jumping horse, and he was training the horse at the time, and it bolted into the small country lane we were on. So just a bad incident, but we're all okay.
Wow. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear both you and Sarah are okay, and that you were the one driving. It sounds like should it have been the other way around, it would not have been so good. So glad to hear you're okay.
Yeah.
All righty, folks. Well, I think there's probably going to be some more folks jumping on, but I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for being here, and the legislators for your time today. We appreciate it. So this session was very crazy, and I'm sure we are all excited that it's finished. Hopefully you all have had some time to relax and spend time with family. I know it's always a busy time. So we will just go ahead and kick off. We're going to do, brief updates from each of our senators and representatives, and then we will jump into some Q&A from the group, if that's okay. So let's go ahead and start with our very own Western Slope Speaker of the House, Julie McCluskey. We will go ahead and start with you, who represents, being the leader of the House, but also District 13 as being her home. So welcome and thank you to the speaker for being here today.
Thank you so much, Brittany, and hello to everyone on the call today. It is a delight to reconnect, especially after such a busy session. I represent House District 13, Jackson, Grand, Summit Lake, Chaffee and Park counties. It is such an honor and a privilege to serve those communities, as well as serve as the Speaker of the House. It was a very productive legislative session. 705 bills were introduced. More than 500 have made it to the governor's desk, and we are still awaiting his signature on many of those pieces of legislation. I believe that it was an epic breakthrough session for our state, whether we talk about housing, affordability, transit, education, or for those of us on the Western Slope, water and wildfire. there was tremendous progress made on many fronts. And I would, maybe lift up that in any one session, you look for one big bill or one big package of bills that defines what that session was all about. This year, we have multiple packages, accomplishments that I think many of us will not only benefit from, but really will serve our state in making sure that every Coloradan has an opportunity to live their own great Colorado dream, whether it was a housing package that included investments in transit-oriented communities and ADUs, as well as bills on protecting renters' rights. There was the property tax measure that did move forward with bipartisan support. I think a carefully crafted, balanced measure that protects our schools, helps local governments in a way that certainly is far better than what we might see on the ballot this next fall, and helps property owners, both residential and business owners, save money on their taxes. We were also thrilled to see a package come forward that will help drive down childhood poverty by over 40% by putting money back in the pockets of low-income, hardworking families. Excited for the fact that when it came to water, I am so grateful to the many members on this call who worked together with the Colorado River Drought Task Force to bring forward a bill that ensured the recommendations from that task force are now in play and are both funded, and the recommendations moving forward. We saw the WOTUS bill, Waters of the U.S. Dredge and Fill bill, come forward with, again, bipartisan support. And I'll end with a note that nearest and dearest to my heart, my commitment to public education, really what drove me to run for office in the first place. We have finally paid off the budget stabilization factor, an amount of money that we've been taking away from our schools now since the recession of 2009 and 10. And now that that is paid off, we're back to level funding. Still need to do more on the amount of funding we're providing to our schools. But I was fortunate to carry a finance formula bill that will transform how our rural schools will receive funding. Many of our rural school districts will now see upwards of 12, 15, 18, in some cases more than 20% increases in funding that I think for far too long they have not received and should have been. We're driving equity into our system, particularly for small rural districts, as well as districts that serve our neediest kids who come from poverty or have special needs around special education or language learning. So I am thrilled to have served as Speaker of the House, delighted to be on this call with some of the best political leaders in our state. Very grateful for Club 20's support and engagement. Can't tell you how powerful it is to hear from Club 20 on these issues as it moves through both the House and the Senate. So thank you for your participation. It really does ensure that we are crafting policy that meets your expectations, hopes, and needs. So thanks, and I hope to stick around for the Q&A here for just a bit.
Great. Thank you, Speaker McCluskey. We truly appreciate it. And, what an honor to have our very own Western Sloper in a role like your own. So we're just grateful you're fighting the good fight for us over here on the Western Slope. So before we move in over to the Senate, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our sponsors for today's event. Our title sponsors for this event is Colorado Mesa University. Thank you to Derek Wagner and the rest of the folks over at CMU. We surely appreciate your support on something like this, like our legislative town hall. We also do have two other sponsors, Better at Land and Title Holding Company, and that is Kelly Hegarty. Thank you to Kelly Hegarty. We surely appreciate your commitment to following us and supporting the work that we do. And then we also have Colorado Colorado Solar and Storage Association, Mike Kruger and his team. If there's anybody from CMU on here, or if COSA or Kelly would like to say a few words, please feel free to hop in here. I see Mike did turn on his video. So Mike, would you want to say a few words?
Well, thank you so much, Brittany. And it's a great honor to join you today and to be a Club 20 member, I think, for multiple years now. On behalf of the solar and energy storage industry, we are really excited to work with communities across the Western Slope around energy issues and to support our legislators who are speaking today around these really important issues as we deal with things like the changing climate and weather, the changing regulatory structure within the state, and ensure that solar can be built and energy storage deployed in communities per their needs and wants. I'm really excited to announce a new hire. We have Adrienne Dorsey joining us. She's going to be part of the COSA Institute. It's our education nonprofit arm, and she's down in Durango. So you have a Western Slope resident being able to articulate what and work with communities on the Western Slope around solar and storage. So thank you so much.
And then it looks like Kelly sent a few remarks and just said, thank you to Club 20 and all for their bill review and work that we do. It helps us understand the legislation better. Thank you for all of it. So thank you, Kelly. We appreciate your support. So now we're going to hop right into the Senate here, and we will go ahead and start with Senator Perry Will from District 5.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everyone on the call here. So, yeah, interesting session. I'll start off by saying I want to thank everybody, and it's been a great pleasure and an honor for me to serve you over there. As most of you know on the call, I'm going to move on. I'm going to try and run for county commissioner over here in Garfield County, but I've had a great time serving the Western Slope and serving House District 50, the old House District 57, and then Senate District 5. It's been wonderful serving the people of the West Slope, and have wonderful constituents living in this country on the West Slope. And I have to tell you, my time at the legislature has been. I have to tell you that the relationships I've built over there, and the friends, so many friends on this call, but the friends and relationships I've made over there at the Capitol are far more important than any of the policy I was ever involved with. So I just have to say that. But I'm looking for bigger and better things, and being home and being around my family and my grandkids, and not missing out on their stuff like I have to do when I'm over there in session. So, but it was a real interesting session. I like I say, love every bit of it. Sometimes there towards the end it gets a little hectic, as you all know. I think I can't remember how many days were left. We still had 300 bills on the calendar, so things got a little jammed up, and late nights and working hard. That's both the House and the Senate, obviously. But I ran some really good bills this year that I'm really proud of. Dylan and I, we were on a big bill signing tour, not to 2 days ago, I guess, and getting some of our bills signed. But I did some stuff in wildfire, some stuff that came out of the Wildfire Matters Committee, a grant navigator program from rural Colorado. I think that really helped some wildfire issues over here. Did an extension on the wild horse bill that I run last year that's been really working well with the Department of Ag and BLM and all our partners. It's really been successful. I'm really excited about that and how well it's worked. Did a lot of stuff in the healthcare arena. Some on substance abuse. I was on the opioid interim committee that got on a couple bills out of there that I think really helped the Western Slope and the people I represent. Worked on safety. Worked in 2 bills, 1135 and Senate Bill 100 with Senator Roberts, that I think are really some common sense bills that will provide some health and safety issues for our motoring public and keep our roads open. We just signed a couple of bills a couple days ago. One I'm really proud of, I did run a bill on death benefits for state employees. That's been long needed and really antiquated law that needed change. So that was House Bill 1139. I was really excited to get done across the line. Did some stuff on the dental hygienists and dentists from around the state and across the state borders that could come in and practice in Colorado, which really helped rural Colorado. Conservation easements, one of my proudest bills, Senate Bill 126. We were wanting more money, but we still got it bumped up where we can get more areas in Colorado conserved and maintain Colorado and keep Colorado, which we really need, especially with the development forces that we see around the state and including the West Slope. Really excited about that. Run the Wolverine reintroduction bill. I think most of you are quite familiar with that one. Purpose in doing that was just show the right way to reintroduce a species into the state. And Governor signed it the other day, really excited about that. And who knows, we'll see wolverines in this state, but at least we're doing it the right way. Senator Roberts and McLaughlin and Morrow were on that bill with me. It's a really good bill and the correct and right way to do it and get away from ballot box biology. Also did the Dylan and I did the species conservation bill as well. But a lot of good bills. I think I was on about 30 some bills. A couple of them got vetoed, but one of them I was really excited about was Senate Bill 90 that I thought made a lot of sense, but I think there was only a few of us down there that thought it did. But that was requiring when someone, the state patrol or sheriff or peace officer in the state pulls you over, you have to provide identification. And if not, because it's just a traffic infraction now, but my bill would change it to a misdemeanor, so you could at least be arrested until you were figured out who you were. That bill failed. I was really disappointed in that one because I thought that was another good common sense bill. But yeah, I had a really good session, and it's been a true pleasure representing Senate District 5. I'll leave it at that.
Great. Thank you, Senator. So I think later on, Senator Simpson might be able to jump on. He had a prior engagement, another legislative wrap up scheduled at about the same time. So he's going to try to hop on a little bit later. So if he does, we will call on him. But for now, we shall move over to District 7 with Senator Rich.
Hi, and thank you so much for putting this together, Brittany. And it's good to see friends on screen at least. And like Senator Will said, it was a pretty good session. The 17 bills that I carried passed in both the House and the Senate. 7 of those have already been signed by the governor. I did one for the sheriff's office here in Mason County concerning the confidentiality of discussions between peer support team. I was happy to have strong bipartisan support on that. One that was important to me was the breast cancer screening fund transfer. This is for women's wellness and to ensure that women are getting screened early for detection of breast cancer. I'm a living proof that early detection will save your life. And there was another bill that I have been wanting to see get passed for about 3 years now, and that was the healthcare biomarker testing. This is a test to guide treatment decisions if the testing is supported by medical and scientific evidence. This is also very important, not just for breast cancer, but it can be for a lot of different illnesses, and that was very important to me. I was happy to be one of the prime sponsors on the first generation serving higher education, and we had good bipartisan support on that bill. It started in the House, and Senator Coleman and I were the closers in the Senate. We also worked on the use of aircraft in search and rescue for Western Slope. This was a very important bill, and we had strong bipartisan support on that as well. Again, starting in the House, and Senator Roberts and I were the closers on that bill in the Senate, so I was happy to see that happen. Speaker McCluskey has already said how many bills. There were 525 bills that were passed or have been signed by the governor. 325 of those were bipartisan, and so I thought that was a pretty good number. 105 bills were postponed indefinitely. 75 bills died in committee or on the floor. 8 bills were introduced on May the 1st, and that was only giving everyone about 8 days really to take care of those bills. And that becomes a little bit challenging when we want to make sure that the public has an opportunity to voice their opinion about those bills. But we did have some accomplishments. Senate Bill 24228 was a Tabor refund mechanism, and this had to do with affordability in Tabor. This bill will return $450 million to the taxpayers of Colorado by making changes to the Tabor refund mechanism. I know with some of the bills that passed this year, there's going to be $2.8 billion in Tabor refunds taken away from the taxpayers over the next 3 years. So I'm hoping that this bill keeps it from having more money than that taken away from the taxpayers. I thought they were very clear in November to leave the Tabor refunds alone. Senate Bill 24233, the property tax bill. The focus on this was affordability in Tabor as well, but it will offer $1.3 billion tax reduction on residential and commercial properties. Senator Will talked about the dental and dental hygienist compact, which is really important. And we also had Senate Bill 2418, which was a physician assistant licensure compact. Senate Bill 24025, that updated the local government sales and use tax collection, and was glad to, that focus on that was finance and taxes. Strengthening enforcement of human trafficking. This was Senate Bill 2435. The focus on this was public safety. Senate Bill 24134, operation of home-based businesses. The focus on this was affordability and businesses. HOAs will no longer be permitted to prohibit homeowners from operating a small business from their homes. And then Representative Soper had a good bill, Senate Bill 24151. The focus on this was public safety and national security, the telecommunications security. I'll let him talk about that one. House Bill 24172 is protection of victims of sexual offenses. The focus on this was public safety, and that was an important bill. HB 241225, first degree murder, bail, and jury selection. This, the focus was public safety, and this bill will enhance public safety by denying bail to individuals who are charged with first degree murder when proof is evident or presumption is great. You know, a few years ago, capital offenses went away, and the unintended consequences of this was bringing this bill forward to make sure that those individuals could be detained. So that's good. I went through that pretty fast. Let's see. Speaker McCluskey talked about the House Bill 241379, which was the dredge and fill activities in state waters. And the focus, of course, was water and environment, and it had strong bipartisan support. We were all happy to support that. And then also she talked about the new school finance formula, and the focus on that, of course, is education. And it's going to benefit Colorado students by making long overdue necessary changes. And I was really happy to support that one as well. We had a few other accomplishments. Senate Bill 16, allowing taxpayers to claim tax credits on charity donations made through an intermediary. House Bill 241001 will provide $20,000 in tax credits to businesses that locate to economically impoverished rural counties. 241142 removes caps on the amount of individuals between the ages of 55 and 64 and how they may deduct their taxes. House Bill 241249 gives a tax credit up to $300,000 to farms and ranches engaging in qualifying stewardship programs. House Bill 241439 will provide a $12,700 tax credit for employers who take on apprentices. So like I said that all pretty fast. But if you have any questions, I'll do what I can to answer those. But thank you again. I'm Senate District 7. That's all of Mesa County, plus Cedar Ridge, which is located in Delta County. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Senator. I mean, it's just crazy to hear all of the bills that you all are on and how you can distinguish between all of them. I try my very best during the session, but definitely need to look them up every so often. So it's incredible the work that you guys do. So thank you for all of your hard work. We will jump over to Senate District 8 with Dylan Roberts. And before I hand it over to him, I just want to give a big thank you to you for serving as the chair of the Ag and Natural Resources Senate Committee. That is another win for us over here on the Western Slope, and you really are a true champion for us over here. So thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate that. And thanks to everybody for joining the call today. It's great to be with so many familiar names. For those of you that I don't know, I'm Dylan Roberts. I serve Senate District 8, which encompasses 10 counties in central and northwest Colorado, from the Garfield, Rio Blanco, Moffett County in the west, all the way east to Jackson, Summit, Clear Creek, and Gilpin, and Grand, and everywhere in between. So really, I just got done with my second year in the state Senate, and let me just say, so excited to be with this team of Western Slope legislators. For those of you who are following this or don't, you should know that we all work so well together, and we have some incredibly strong advocates for the Western Slope in our Western Slope delegation at the Capitol. It's such a privilege to work with these folks. These are some of my best friends at the Capitol on both sides of the aisle, and I do most of my bills with them because they're so great to work with, and we all really want to do everything we can to represent the Western Slope in the legislation that we work on. And we're so grateful to have, first and foremost, a Western Slope Speaker of the House, and so many strong advocates with me in the Senate, like Senator Rich and Senator Will and Senator Simpson when he joins us. But let me just emphasize, the speaker talked a little bit about this, but as far as the session as a whole, before I get into it, just a couple individual bills I worked on, we had some major breakthroughs and reached some really important compromises that I think are going to prevent unnecessary ballot fights or unintended consequences in the future. The speaker talked about the breakthrough we made on public education funding. Cannot be overstated how transformational this legislative session is going to be for K-12 funding in Colorado. Paying off the BS factor, getting rid of that, and reformulating the school finance formula to be more equitable is really going to help rural schools in particular. And the additional funding for rural schools, $35 million a year, is going to be a game changer for a lot of our districts out here on the Western Slope. So an exciting year for education. Also, some incredible and important compromises were made to prevent some really painful ballot fights. The speaker mentioned property taxes, a really good bipartisan solution that will provide real relief for both residential and commercial property owners, and set up a very equitable and system moving forward so that our special districts and our schools and fire departments get the funding they need, but that taxpayers are getting real relief. Senator Rich mentioned as well, 228 is the largest tax cut in Colorado history, and in an income tax reduction, as well as a sales tax reduction, providing some important relief to taxpayers across the state. A huge compromise was met on oil and gas issues to prevent what could have been several competing ballot measures from the oil and gas industry, as well as the environmental groups, in a couple bills that came forward as a compromise, and hopefully will result in no more ballot wars, at least for a while, on the oil and gas front. I think we all appreciate that production of oil and gas is an important part of our economy in Colorado, and especially on the Western Slope. But we also were able to reach a compromise with the environmental groups who want to protect air quality and environmental protections across the state. For those of you that are following, there was also a really important compromise on medical malpractice damages, which could, if we hadn't done that, there would have been a large ballot fight about insurance, which would have raised health insurance prices, auto insurance prices, and many other types of insurance if those ballot measures had passed. But we were able to reach a compromise on that. And so thankfully, those won't be on everybody's ballot as well. And I'm probably missing some, but there were a lot of really important agreements that were made near the end of the session. I was really excited to work on several pieces of legislation, several that have already been mentioned, but I'll highlight just a couple that I think are really important for Western Slope residents and some folks that I see on this call who were involved in these issues. Senator Will mentioned Senate Bill 100, but this is a really important bill that I'm excited the governor just signed on Monday. This is going to hopefully prevent a lot of avoidable accidents and crashes on I-70 and across and on mountain passes, particularly on the Western Slope. This is the bill that will require commercial vehicles to carry chains during the winter months on several parts of Colorado's roads and highways, so that we can make sure those vehicles are equipped when storms come in. We will also ensure no left lane entry by commercial vehicles on key parts of I-70, Floyd Hill, Georgetown Hill, the Eisenhower Johnson tunnels, Vail Pass, Dow Junction, and the Glenwood Canyon. What we've been seeing is these crashes by semis passing too fast in the left lane are totally avoidable. And when they happen, and when I-70 gets closed, you all know the artery to the Western Slope to the Front Range is very costly for our economy. Every hour that I-70 is closed, it costs the state of Colorado $2 million. And so we're excited about Senate Bill 100 and hope that that helps. We worked very closely with the motor carriers, the motor carrier industry on that bill. They got to a place of support with the amendments that we did by the end of that process. So we're thankful for their support and getting buy-in from that industry. We're also very excited about the possibility and real possibility of mountain passenger rail to Northwest Colorado. And in particular, very excited that Senate Bill 190 passed. This is a bill I worked on closely with Club 20, AG&C, Moffett County, Routt County, Grand County. This will provide up to $10 million of tax incentives to businesses who choose to locate their business in Northwest Colorado, Grand, Routt, or Moffett County, and use the rail line for freight transportation, both to and from the region. The idea here being, if we are going to have mountain passenger rail from Denver to Winter Park to Steamboat, Hayden, and Craig, we also need to have a healthy freight business to make that financially viable. And right now, coal is being transported on those lines. We know that might not last forever. And so if we can attract manufacturing businesses to the region, will, one, help the economy in those transitioning communities and also make passenger rail financially viable. So that's a great win-win bill, and excited that the governor is going to sign that next week, hopefully in Northwest Colorado. So stay tuned for that. But my thanks to the speaker and Representative Lukens for their partnership on that and the support from all the Western Slope delegation here. The speaker talked a little bit about water, but we had some really important water bills passed this year, including the annual water projects bill that we do every year. But this year, thanks to sports betting revenue and other funding sources, was a very healthy amount at $55 million that's going to fund water projects across the Western Slope, conservation efforts, and really importantly, $20 million to help the Colorado River District secure the Shoshone water right, a project they've been working on for several years now, just signed the agreement with Excel, and are trying to get funds together from local governments and now the state government to help secure that water right. And grateful for a lot of county commissioners on this call and other local organizations that have helped with that effort. Some good money coming from the projects bill there. The speaker and Senator Rich mentioned the Waters of the U.S. or the Dredge and Fill bill, which had quite a journey through the legislature, but thanks to a lot of input from folks on this call and others, we got it to a great place where it received unanimous approval in the state Senate and near unanimous approval when it went back to the House for concurrence. And important that we create a Colorado program to protect our wetlands, rivers, and streams, but also allow for agriculture and industry to continue their work. And then I'll just highlight two healthcare bills that are particularly important for the Western Slope. Senate Bill 168, a bill I worked on with Senator Simpson as well as Speaker McCluskey. This is a bill that will create a funding source for remote patient monitoring grant programs. This is what will allow hospitals and clinics to monitor patients at their home, whether it's for diabetes or high blood pressure or other ailments. And by monitoring folks at their home, you significantly reduce the cost of healthcare. They don't have to travel very far to go to the hospital. They can reduce unnecessary visits and make sure that they're getting the care that they need. So we're excited about that. That's a really great program for rural Colorado. And then finally, Senate Bill 221 that I had the pleasure of working on with Senator Rich. This bill adds funding to what we created 2 years ago called the Colorado Rural Healthcare Workforce Pipeline Program. This is a program that funds rural placement at all of our places of higher education of folks who are studying to become healthcare professionals, from doctors to nurses, therapists, dentists, all types of healthcare. This program helps fund placement in rural Colorado during their education because the statistics show that if you spend time in rural Colorado during your education, your likelihood of returning here to once you graduate and want to start your career is much higher. And so that's really important to getting more healthcare providers to rural Colorado. That bill also included a couple $1 million for rural hospitals, which we know they badly need that support all across the Western Slope and across rural Colorado. So excited about that rural healthcare initiative that we got passed. I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but I'll stop talking. Look forward to the questions, and thank you to Club 20 for your engagement on a lot of these pieces of legislation and helping us get them across the finish line.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator. We will jump over to the House and keep our eyes open for Senator Simpson as well. So we will go ahead and push it over to House District 54, Representative Soper.
If I can unmute it and get my camera on. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Brittany and Club 20. It was great to see you over at the Capitol a lot this session. It means a lot to those of us representing the Western Slope to see Club 20 active and engaged on the ground and not just following bills. So big kudos to you. As Senator Roberts just said, and I agree fully with, a lot of my bills are with the people on this call. And there's a reason, and that's because those of us on the Western Slope, we're family. We may not be from the same political party, all of us, but there's a common thread that unites us. And that's why when it comes to working on certain bills, we all work together. I know Senator Roberts probably chose not to mention the funeral home bills to save that for me, and I appreciate that, because these were two of my biggest bills, and there's actually a third one, though I wasn't the sponsor. So Senate Bill 173 and House Bill 1335 kind of go hand in glove. House Bill 1335 was to continue the regulation of the funeral home business entity. And then we added safeguards around chain of custody of the body once it's entered the funeral home. And then Senate Bill 173 is, for the first time in 41 years, we're going to be licensing funeral directors, morticians, funeral science practitioners, and cremationists. And that both of those are slated to be signed on Friday. These are two major bills to help solve and address the problems that we've experienced with the Sunset Mesa atrocity, with the Penrose crimes that have occurred. I could list probably 20 other cases that were cited in the Sunrise report by Dora, but I won't list them all out for you. They're pretty gruesome if you start digging into the details. And then the third bill that's part of this package of bills was House Bill 1245, and this is to continue the regulation of non-transplant tissue banks. I believe originally that was a Forum Catlin bill to address what happened at Sunset Mesa. We actually added more safeguards, and I worked on the amendment package that we added to this, which was to give full disclosure about what would happen to a person's body if they do choose to donate it to a non-transplant tissue bank. And it's a pretty dark world when you start getting into it. As I mentioned at the start, am over in Belgium and Holland right now, and toured the old St. John's Hospital in Bruges, which was a medieval hospital. And I noticed next door they had a Body Worlds exhibit. Well, that's one thing that if you do choose to donate your body, you could end up in one of these exhibits. And we made sure that in House Bill 1254, that the person in life, when they are making this decision, are notified that your body could just end up being plastinized and being on display, or being in a private collection as well. Other major bills that I worked on, one with Representative Lukens, 1365, which is Opportunity Now. So we extended and expanded the tax credits for being able to develop apprenticeship programs for the future workforce needs of our state for critical infrastructure. If we're going to be able to build out, key components, whether it's, highways or telecommunications, that we have the workforce to be able to do it. And then regional talent summits to be able to match both employers and the workforce there as well. One bill I was really proud that Senator Roberts and Senator Rich joined me on was 1342. We had heard lots of complaints and issues about the gateway exam to going into the workforce, like the medical board's bar exam, even the CDOT flagger exam of not recognizing the Americans with Disabilities Act when someone had dyslexia. And being able to address that in legislation is going to be a real game changer to make sure that everyone can compete on an even playing field for trying to enter the workforce in the profession they have studied to enter. I was really proud to have Promises Made, Promises Kept bill in House Bill 1135. And actually, I think Senator Roberts, you were on this as well, but I can't remember who the Senate sponsor was. It may have been Senator Will. But it's to move the penalties for driving a semi without a CDL from a Class A traffic infraction back up to a traffic misdemeanor. And that really is a recognition that if you're driving a 20,000 pound one vehicle without the appropriate license, that it really is more like title protection for any other license or profession, and that we shouldn't be just handing out a traffic ticket of $100. You mail in your fine and you're on your way. By having it be a misdemeanor, that individual has to appear in county court, and they have to stand up and explain to the county court judge why they were driving such a big vehicle without the appropriate license. A bill that was a first for the nation was House Bill 1058 that I worked on with Representative Kip. This was one to protect Coloradans' biological and neuro data that can uniquely identify that individual. So right now, I even have a prop for everyone. I'm wearing my iWatch, if you can see it. Well, this can actually identify through unique features about who I am, just who I would be if you had the complete data set of how my heart beats, the oxygen rate, all this taken together. We want to make sure that that data is protected and that it's not being sold or given away without your consent. And that's all it says, is that you just need to have the consent of the individual if it's data that could uniquely identify you. Just a couple of other bills that I was very proud to be a part of. I know Senator Rich mentioned Senate Bill 151. This is telecom security. Right now, Congress outlawed Huawei equipment being involved in our cell phone telecommunications systems. However, it's been really slow to get federal grant dollars to replace Huawei equipment. And Colorado has part of our missile defense system is in the Eastern Plains. And a lot of the Huawei equipment, and in case you don't know what it is, it's basically Chinese spy equipment, is on the towers near where our anti-missile defense system is located. So as a state, we also want to know how companies are doing with removing this equipment and replacing this equipment. And in exchange for knowing where they are in the process, we're requiring local governments not to require the companies to go through permitting all over again if it's just replacing a piece of equipment that already had been granted a permit in the first place. We updated Colorado's lemon law. So if you've ever had a brand new vehicle that's a lemon, we changed that. So under the old law, you had to take it back to the dealer 4 times, and it had to be out of service for 90 days. We lowered it to 3 times that the dealer needed to attempt to repair the car, and you only being out of service with the car for 60 days. That was a major change, one that we worked on with the auto dealers, with the manufacturers of cars. And really for them, they actually don't really want to have lemons out on the roadway, to tell you the truth. They actually would like to get them back, but we also want to give them an opportunity to repair the car if it's a repair that can be made, even though we know that about 1 to 2% of all cars probably are not going to be repairable. The last thing that I do want to say that's something really major for Western Colorado is we were able to stand up a interim committee for cell phone connectivity. And I had a bill on point as such, but the bill was written in such a way that it would go away if the Legislative Council created an interim committee to look at how we improve our connectivity. And I'm super excited to see what will come from this committee over the summer, see what things that maybe government can push out of the way to really help companies offer better connection for consumers, because it's not just for consumers, it's also for public safety and ensuring that everyone is kept safe and stays in contact. And with that, I'll pass it on to someone else and accept your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Soper. We will now move to Representative Mark Catlin from District 58, and then we will read a update that came to us from Representative Lukens as well. So go ahead and kick it off, Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Club 20. It's always good to have you on our side. We've seen you over there, that matters. It's always good to be able to say on a bill that Club 20 supports this, because that says it's a Western Colorado voice that's speaking. And that makes a difference. Honestly, it does. As some of the guys and gals have said earlier, we get along well, those of us from the Western Slope, because most of us are cut from the same fabric. We live in the same kind of communities. We represent the same kind of folks. So our Western Slope contingent is very effective. I think you can see from just some of the reports today how many bills have been done by this contingency of folks and what they've accomplished. You know, I could go through a litany of all the bills that we were on and all those kind of things, but there's a few of them that I think are important. And, you know, just mention them quickly. The water rights, the water projects bill that Senator Roberts mentioned is very, very important to the Western Slope. The $55 million for projects, but the $20 million for the Shoshone water right is a game changer. And it's going to be mentioned in history as we go forward, because keeping that water right in the Western Slope of Colorado for the benefit of Western Colorado is really, really important. Some of the folks that are not in the water world may not understand it, but having that water in that river is going to protect endangered species. It will protect agricultural diversions, all of the kind of things. And the main thing is it will not go to the Front Range for them to raise more houses. So that's a really big deal. I was really proud to be on that with Senator Roberts and Simpson and McCormick. We do a lot of bills together, Dylan Roberts and I, and the speaker, and a lot of the folks that are here. Western Slopers get together and we start running bills, they pass. And that's a big deal. We don't just run a bill to just make a statement. We run a bill because we want things to happen with that bill. And that's one of those examples. I ran a bill on gray water use inside the house, and that's something new and different. This is a plumbing deal that works to where people can reuse the gray water inside their house and not send it on down to the sewer plant. Hopefully, it will reduce some of the water that the cities are trying to use in order for inside the house usage. It's new, it's different, but I think it has some future in some of these major developments, particularly on the eastern slope. You know, that's Trans Mountain diverted water. We need them to use it as much as they can to keep from diverting more water from our side of the mountain. One that I felt was important was where we took the information from the drought task force. The Speaker of the House, she and I were on this bill, and took their concerns, their recommendations, and put them into a piece of legislation that we could start trying to put those things on the ground over here on our side of the mountain and statewide in some places. That was an important bill. We asked people to volunteer their time. Senator Roberts was in on that. We asked people from our communities to volunteer some of their times, their talent, and their thoughts, and they did that. Came back to us in the legislature, said these are the things we think work. We put them into a bill, and now we're going to run them, and they will end up being law before it's over. That's a good thing. The other bill that I was on, and the Speaker and I were on this bill together, is the sports betting revenue. We passed DD in 2020, which allowed the state to keep up to $29 million for future water projects, conservation, all of the things that we talked about. This bill asked the voters if the state of Colorado can keep all of the tax revenue from gambling on your phones and all the things that are happening. We did not expect the response to sports betting to be as big as it is. And so what we're asking is to keep that revenue so that we're not giving that money back to major gambling companies from outside of the state, from, back to we pay the casinos to run these things. We'll continue to do that. The tax revenue comes back to the state of Colorado, and we can start talking about the future of water projects in the state of Colorado with a revenue stream that we could depend on. We've asked a number of different times and in different ways to fund projects, but with this bill, we're asking for people that are enjoying a hobby to help us with it. And it doesn't come out of household budgets. It comes out of that tax revenue. I think it's a good one. I'm hoping that on the ballot that it will be approved. I think that it might. We're going to work hard on trying to convince people that it's a good one. Another thing I wanted to mention is we modified county elected officers' paychecks. Hinsdale County, for example, small counties like that are not being able to make up the pay. The people that are dedicating their lives to, they're not getting paid to do it. So we increased the pay on some of those county commissioners, increased the slots that they occupy in regards to how they're paid. And on the same vein, we passed a bill to increase the base pay for our district attorneys all over the Western Slope and all over rural Colorado. We need to keep those folks on the job. They're good for everything. They're good for the victims. They're good for the people who are charged. Good prosecutors are good for the state of Colorado. And what we're trying to do with that piece of legislation is raise those paychecks up to where people be interested in being our DAs. We've had some problems with that. They hadn't had a raise since 2012. I don't know how many of you are on this Brady Bunch deal. I don't know how many of us have worked since 2012 without a raise. So I thought it was time. It did pass. It was one of the last bills that happened in the last 3 days. So thanks to the folks that helped with that. One I'm very proud of, and I'll probably give it up right there, is we regulated the sale of sodium nitrite. Sodium nitrite is a product people are buying to commit or to accomplish suicide. And it's pointed at our young TikTokers and influencers are saying, if you've had enough life, give me a call for $13 to get out of this life. Well, that just doesn't seem right to me. This product, we are regulated so that if it's over 10% pure, you can't buy it unless you are a commercial user. Commercial users we use it for bacon, to process bacon, ham, dry out meats, fish, and those kind of things. Some of these people have sold as much as 1,200 packets to people on the internet to accomplish this. You know, there's a war being fought right now all over the world. The 1,500 people killed, yet 1,200 people killed by one individual. And it seemed to me that something needed to be done. I was glad to do that bill. I beat Senator Roberts on that bill again. But you know, those are the kind of things that you know you don't think about it much, but when you're introduced to it, you realize somebody has to do something, and that's what we did with that bill. Hopefully, it will keep some family from that, and that's important to me. I ran a bill for funding rural healthcare education. What we're thinking about there is that if young people live in Montrose, for example, can get their education on the Western Slope, it would be much easier for them to come back and go to work in healthcare in their hometown than it would be to look all over. So it's a way of building the bench. Hopefully it's going to work. I think it will. It seems to have legs. I got a lot of it that I'm pretty proud of. But, you know, that's what we try to do when we go over there. Every one of us in this Zoom call are thinking about what can I do that will make a difference in my community, in my district, and on the Western Slope. And every one of the people on the legislators, that's their main concern. We talk to each other in the hallway or in committee hearings, where we see each other. Those are the things that we talk about. Is I'm running this one, you're running that one. Okay, let's see what we can do. And every one of these folks has you in mind. And for that, I'm very proud of all the people that are sitting in the legislators. I'm glad that I've gotten to know them. And they're going to be friends of mine for the rest of my life. So, you know, that's one of those benefits you never figured on. They keep talking about relationships, but we're all going to be friends with each other from now on. So that's a relationship that you would not have had if you didn't go to that building, suffer some of the things we suffer, but some great things have come out. And so, you know, I just want you to know I'm proud to represent you, all of you. I'm going to term out. I'm going to be at the end of this session. I'm termed out and represented. Perry Will left the slot, so we're going to go and see if we can get into that slot. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. If there's one thing that you guys have all touched on and that rings true every single year is how well our Western Slope delegation does work together. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, you're always focusing on the Western Slope nexus, and that's what we try to do every single year with the work that we do as well. So thank you to all of you for the great work that you do in working together. One other note before I do hand it over to Andrea to read Representative Lucan's update. I do want to do a special thank you to Barbara McLaughlin as well, representative from District 59. She is the Education Committee Chair. You guys have heard a few times about House Bill 241448, the finance funding formula for education, and it truly will set the stage in a different manner going forward that will hopefully set our rural schools up for success. So a big shout out to her as the chair of the Education Committee in the House as well. So we're grateful to have such great representation as chairs, as representatives and senators from all of our districts, and of course as Speaker of the House as well. So now I will hand it over to Andrea Wilson, our Policy and Operations Director, to read the update from Representative Lukens.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is from Rep. Lukens. Hello, Club 20. I apologize that I cannot join you in person. It is an honor to serve as your state representative in the Colorado State Capitol and uplift the voices of Eagle, Routt, Moffett, and Rio Blanco counties. It is crucial that we advocate for the Western Slope like you who understand the unique challenges and opportunities of our region and are committed to its progress. This year, I proudly sponsored 25 bills, each one a testament to our shared commitment to the Western Slope. These bipartisan bills are rural economy, increase affordability, advocate for our ranchers, invest in our children's education, and protect our precious waters. And then Rep Lukens does highlight some of those bills, and I'm going to go ahead and email those out to all the folks on the call. She would also like to hear from you whenever needed, and again, I will attach that email as well. She says, I am also hosting 5 town halls this May and June throughout my district. These meetings are a great opportunity for us to connect, share ideas, and discuss issues that matter to our community. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you around town. And again, I will email those bills and her email out to everyone that registered for this call.
Great, thank you, Andrea. We will jump into some Q&A, so if there are any questions from the group, please feel free to type those in the chat and we will read them out in the order they are received, or feel free to raise your hand and we will call on you. So we do have one from Wendell Coots. He says, CDPHE will now be conducting rulemaking for the waters of the state permitting and policies. Can the state legislature stay engaged and to ensure the proposed rules meet both the intent and spirit of the legislators? Go ahead, speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Really good question. Thank you, Wendell. You may have noticed that through the legislative process, we extended the rulemaking date from May of 2025 through December of 25, in part because we recognize the complexity of what we have assigned to rulemaking and wanting to be sure that we get it right. This gives us next legislative session to do a bit of a check-in. I would not be surprised if we revisit the statute that we have passed this year in 1379, in case there are some technical adjustments, updates, maybe clarity that needs to be provided to the specifics that we put into the legislation this year. And it certainly is a priority given the number of interested parties that we had at the table, that we continue to hear from all of those different groups. As an aside, the governor had started work with a task force a year and a half ago, recognizing that the Sackett decision was pending and we needed to make sure Colorado was poised and ready to bring legislation forward once we knew what that decision was. The Sackett decision came down in May. The task force was nearly wrapped up at that point, and so additional stakeholding had continued through July, August, into September. When we brought forward the draft legislation, we'd worked on it through the month of December, and then in January held our first meeting. And I was overwhelmed, but very pleased that we had 1,400 individuals sign up to be a part of the stakeholding process. And that, I think, is a clear indication of how important this legislation is for the state. We, CDPHE, in our structuring of next steps, has certainly recognized the importance of continuing that level of engagement. And I hope that the organizations and the people who contributed to the legislation thus far will stay with us at the table so that we don't miss a beat should there need to be adjustments next legislative session.
Yeah, Senator Roberts, feel free to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, in addition, when the bill, the speaker and Rep. McCormick made some really important amendments in the House, and then when the bill came over to the Senate and Senator Kirkmeyer joined me as co-prime, we added in one more amendment in the Senate that requires the department to report back to the legislature very frequently about rulemaking and after the rulemaking, how the program is going. And so there are some really the important reporting requirements. The legislature will always stay apprised and involved, and then also some triggers in there that if permits exceed 110 a year, then the CDPHE needs to go get more funding to make sure that there's no backlog and other safeguards like that. So we anticipate, as the speaker said, to remain very involved in this issue.
Great, thank you both for your answers on that one. This looks more like a comment. Michelina Pollock says, Senate Bill 24230 was not a compromise for independent operators along the western slope. It was another last-minute bill with little time to debate. Could somebody kind of touch base on maybe what that process looked like behind the scenes, and how it came to be once it was introduced? Speaker McCluskey, brave woman.
Thanks, Brittany. I really appreciate that question. And I will say that there were conversations with some of our leaders in the oil and gas industry, specifically Chevron, Occidental, and Civitas, early, maybe even as early as last fall. While the bill came forward rather late, I think there were many negotiations that happened on two specific fronts. One around the ozone mitigation measures, which came forward in Senate Bill 229, and then the production fee component of those conversations came forward in Senate Bill 230. And I think it is important to note that industry really led the conversations on how that production fee should be structured. Our severance tax rate is incredibly low at, I believe, 0.68%, not even 1 percentage point. And I am very conscientious of the oil and gas production that does happen on the Western Slope and across this state, and its importance to local economies. I think industry leaders helped guide a market-based approach to how that production fee level was set. The fiscal note on that bill, I think, demonstrates that when oil and gas is trading at a much lower rate on the market than selling at a much lower rate on the market, then the production fee has to slide down as well. And only when we see a much higher rate for those commodities should the fee be increased or appropriate given those levels. The big industry leaders, part of the agreements around the ozone mitigation measures and the production fees included the removal of ballot measures, both from environmental leaders as well as oil and gas leaders, all with the hope that we have several years now where we are not continuing to engage in heated debate or conflict at the legislative level, but really to give the measures that we have put into place time to have impact, to produce the results that we are after. And if after 3 years or more, we are not seeing the kind of improvements in air quality that we are anticipating with these investments in transit, or improvements to our public lands with these investments, then we'll need to revisit the package. But thank you for the question and for the input. I certainly hear the concern and appreciate your perspective.
Great. Thank you, Speaker McCluskey. Senator Will, did you want to respond to that too? I saw you take yourself off mute.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say that I did get a good amendment on that. Was that money goes for the Parks and Wildlife for reintroduction efforts. In the Senate, I ran an amendment that says none of that money can be used for wolves or for grizzly bear reintroduction in the state of Colorado.
Yes, great. Thank you, Senator. That was definitely one of the concerns that made it a little bit easier to take into account. So thank you, Senator. I know we have a lot of concerns about, the processes as of late and what had happened and has been happening in Grand County. So I will go ahead and read the next question. It comes from Lynetta. She says, House Bill 241448, how will the percentage raises be determined? For instance, what is the criteria to receive the 20% increase in funding?
Lynetta, thank you for the question. Our new school finance formula will be calculated based on two significant kind of buckets. One is student demographics. So students who come from a background of poverty, students who are learning English for the first time, or students who have special education needs, they will receive additional funding no matter what school district they attend in this state. So for school districts that have high diversity or high needs, they will see more funding based on a weight that will be put for those pupils. Our school finance formula bases funding on a per pupil approach. So we will now provide additional weighted funding for those students. Additionally, we created something new in the formula that acknowledges rural districts face very dramatic challenges, both in their access to resources locally, what we call diseconomies of scale. They typically, a rural community doesn't have the same level of local help when it comes to plumbing and HVAC and electrical needs, or building needs, or access to local resources and programs for students and families. So we added weighted measures into the finance formula for remote school districts, and these remote characteristics are based on federal guidance. So the smaller and more remote you are, the farther away you are from a suburban or urban community, the more money you will receive. Thanks for the question. It's a great one.
Sorry, there I am talking without unmuting myself. More so a comment and thank you from Merritt Linke in Grand County. He said, just wanted to thank Senator Roberts, Speaker McCluskey, Senator Will, and Rep. Lukens, and others for their work to make sure that House Bill 1375 died in committee. Especially in light of recent events in Grand County, this bill would have been extremely detrimental to ag, not to mention logistically impossible to implement. There any follow-up comments on that? Senator Roberts.
Yes, thanks, Brittany, and thank you, Commissioner Linke. Appreciate your support against that bill. I totally agree with you. Obviously, I didn't have a chance to vote on it because the House Ag Committee did the right thing and made sure that didn't advance farther than its first committee hearing. But I didn't touch on this in my opening comments, but wanted to thank a lot of people on this call for your advocacy on some of the issues we're seeing with wolf reintroduction. It's something that we all are following very closely. Of course, myself and Speaker McCluskey represent Grand and Jackson counties, where we've seen the wolf depredation and releases in Grand and Summit. But we know wolves are all over the Western Slope now at this point, and even onto the Eastern Slope in Larimer County. But Senator Will and I kind of led the charge on pushing back on some of the CPW commission appointments this session as well. That, we talked a lot about bills, but that's also a role that the Senate has, is confirming or not confirming people to various boards and commissions. And so thank you to Club 20 for your support in our position on some of those CPW commission appointments. We, of course, did have one who ultimately withdrew his name before the full Senate vote, and then one that we got fairly close on denying on the Senate floor. But your input and feedback on all of that was invaluable. This wolf issue is obviously going to be an ongoing thing. We want to stay involved and try to push the state to better serve folks who are living here on the Western Slope and dealing with the impacts of that. So I certainly look forward to staying in touch with you, Commissioner Linke, and everyone else on that issue.
Senator Will.
And thank you, Commissioner Linke, that on that bill, because that was I think everyone on this call understands that was a horrible bill that needed to go away. Thankfully it did.
Thank you, Senator Will. Mr. Ray Beck from Craig America, as he likes to say. Does anyone know what the timeline is for passenger rail in terms of access for the general public? Senator Roberts, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany, and thanks, Ray. So there's no definitive timeline. Of course, things are still kind of in the formation plan, but as far as Mountain Rail, which is obviously the one that would impact this group the most, the CDOT is currently doing a service development plan. I believe that's should be completed by early next year, early 2025. And I think the realistic scenario is that there's passenger rail service by the end of this decade at the latest, but hopefully a little bit sooner, maybe 2027, 2028. Mountain rail is going to happen much faster and sooner than front range passenger rail because we, of course, already have the infrastructure here. We have the rail line that is currently operating, transporting coal, and obviously from Winter Park to Denver doing passenger rail service already. So we're much further ahead. And thanks to Senate Bill 184, which is a funding source for all passenger rail, front range and mountain rail, and then Senate Bill 190, I think we're going to be able to attract a lot of federal investment to get both of those done. And which, of course, is a funding issue more than anything else. But we're feeling very confident about this, and so several years away, but hopefully by the end of the decade is the realistic timeline.
Great. Thank you for that answer, Senator. Well, seeing no other questions in the chat and us getting about at that time, Senator Will, did you have something to add? You unmuted.
I did. I figured Senator Roberts was going to mention it, but we passed an amendment in the Senate, and when that happens, I will be the voice on that rail.
And Representative Catlin?
And I suppose if he's sick, I'll be the voice. Anyway, I've got one other thing I wanted to mention. Those of you that are here on the Western Slope, there will be a public meeting tonight with CDOT in regards to Highway 50, the bridge across Blue Mesa Reservoir. We don't have a public relations firm over here on this road to tell you how many dollars that costs when it's shut, like the I-70 does. But I think we would be pretty close in there. We might be $1 million an hour. We're having an economic earthquake or heart attack, whichever you think is worst. So we are having a public meeting tonight at 6:30 at the Montrose Event Center. If any of you close enough to hear, be there, we'd certainly like to have you there. I think there are some things that are happening that may be good news. So anyway, again, thank you, Club 20. I just need to get that out to these people because the folks that are on here are the ones that are involved. So I wanted them to know. So thank you very much.
No, thank you, Representative. And again, a big thank you for all of you for making time today, whether you're traveling or at home or, just running from wrap up to wrap up. Like I know you guys are crazy busy. So we just appreciate you always reaching out to us, and we look forward to continuing working with you actively in the future. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.